Hi, welcome to The Edge, a podcast from the Bluntness, where we unpack real-world experiences and expertise of seasoned and successful cannabis professionals. I'm your host, Harrison Wise, founder and publisher of The Bluntness. Today's guest is Eddie Brennan, president of Beak Skiff and founder and CEO of Ayrloom, a new cannabis beverage entering the New York market. Eddie, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's always exciting to talk about our family business and what's happening in New York.
So you're a legacy operator, but in a different context. Your family business goes back, you said, over 100 years. So tell us a little bit about that history and how you finally arrived at hemp and then cannabis.
Yeah, so we're celebrating our 112th year here at Beak Skiff, which is something we're really proud of. And it's always interesting to talk to other family businesses. Most family businesses don't make it to a second or even third generation. So to be in the fifth generation is a real honor, and it's been a testament to our ability to change and innovate and come up with new ideas, which kind of led us into cannabis. But first and foremost, we're a family apple orchard. So we operate 1,000 acres here in Upstate New York. We're just south of Syracuse, New York, so right in the heart of New York State. And what we've realized is being a farmer is a really tough business. So I admire what my forefathers did to get us to this point, and so we still operate our acreage, but we've always been about innovation. So going from apples to, innovating to fresh cider, and then innovating into hard cider, which is our 1911 brand of hard cider is now in about 30 states and one of the bigger hard cider companies or brands that's out there. But that allowed us to, we always say that our hard cider business saved our family farm. It allowed us to take the 50% of apples that aren't going to make it to a grocery store and make delicious hard cider. And we've been trying to innovate and find ways. I have 2 daughters now, on how to get it to that 6th generation. And cannabis was an interesting way to find another revenue source for our farm. So we have 1,000 acres, and over the last 4 years we've grown hemp, and really that transitioned last year into being one of the first adult grows, the first marijuana grows in New York State. Which we're really proud of. But that creates lots of other challenges. So we're very diversified, doing lots of things. We operate, we have a big Apple Hill campus that we call. So we have a big tasting room, and we see over 400,000 people a year. We do everything from big concerts. So last year we had 18, concerts of, 4,000 people plus at each show, and just exposing people to our brand and what we do here. And you can't survive today as just an apple orchard, is what we've realized. So we've tried to come up with new fun ways, and music and weddings and all that fun stuff. Everything kind of harkens back to getting people in, learning about our brands and what makes us special. But yeah, to go 112 years, survive prohibition, survive droughts and too much rain, not enough rain, and frosts. It's been interesting. I like to think what my grandfather would think of us being in the weed business now. It's pretty fun.
I was going to ask about that. It seems like such a traditional family business. How did that first conversation go when you were exploring getting into the cannabis space?
Yeah, well, it was a lot of education. This whole contrasting cannabis to alcohol has always been interesting, because we get emails from customers of our traditional Beak Skiff business who really don't understand, why we're getting into the cannabis business. They have no issue with like our 150 proof bourbon that we sell, but then you start to introduce cannabis and it opens up a whole nother bag. But we, I've in the alcohol business, it's hard to say you're really helping people. Yeah, you're providing entertainment and a way to relax. But cannabis, I really feel like we are helping people and providing a new experience, a healthier alternative to potentially alcohol. But still, there's such a stigma out there that we still are trying to break with these customers. And within our own family, there were definitely conversations on, should we be doing this? But I truly have the conviction to know that cannabis can be helpful for people. I've seen it in my own life, whether that's with my mental health or sleep or, a reduction in my alcohol consumption. And ultimately, we see cannabis as a real threat to the alcohol business. So why not, jump on in.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. A lot of people don't appreciate the fact that even if you're consuming cannabis recreationally, you still derive some medical benefit from it. You derive the positives that cannabis delivers, whether it's relaxation, like you said, or anti-inflammatory benefits, things that it does to help treat either mental health or help you sleep or other benefits that the plant provides. So it is fascinating, and it's interesting to see how those type of discussions happen in not only family businesses, but just in families in general at Thanksgiving and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I showed like a great example is I showed up to a St. Patty's Day party last weekend on a Saturday, walked into the party with like maybe 6 or 8 THC beverages, so our Ayrloom THC beverages, and they went so fast. But it was interesting, like these people stopped drinking alcohol and moved to cannabis, and I got a lot of messages the next day like, oh, I don't feel hungover,
Right.
or
Totally.
I'm glad I drank these and not 4 more vodka sodas. And so there was definitely that sense of relief the next day when they realized that they didn't feel so crappy because they had drank all that alcohol.
That's right. Best St. Patty's Day ever. Keep it green, right? Keep it green.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you are vertically integrated, right? In the true sense of vertical integration, where you control everything from supply to manufacturing and then distribution as well, right? Because you have a retail in your own as part of your brand portfolio,
Yes,
right?
New York's interesting in the adult use market. There's no ability to completely vertically integrate, so going all the way to having your own dispensary. So really, we act as we're still operating under this provisional licensing. So we have a provisional grow license that allows us to grow, and then we're one of the first 20 processors in the state. So we can take our crop and turn it into oil, and ultimately we make edibles and vapes, and now beverages. Our big bet was really into the beverage industry. So Beak and Skiff and Ayrloom, at our core, we're a beverage company. So we've innovated in beverages for the last 15 years. We operate a very large hard cider facility where we not only do we make brands for our 1911 brand, but we produce for 10 plus brands across the country. So in our core DNA, we understand beverages. So we took a big bet in creating another facility dedicated to not only the edibles and vapes, but beverages. And we oversized that facility, knowing that we feel like long-term beverages is really going to be the way people consume cannabis in the future. So if you go into a typical dispensary and you talk to an operator, it's 1% to 2% of the revenue is coming from beverages. So it's a very small number, but growing quickly.
Right.
And I think people, as they want to smoke less, they'll realize turning to this more familiar consumption method will be a way they start to go. So that's our bet. And we're not only set up to make our own beverages, but help other operators from other states come in and ultimately gain production, because in the cannabis business, everything has to be contained in its own ecosystem currently. So everything has to be grown, processed, and sold in New York State. So that is what we're doing currently.
And in terms of the infusion, is that a proprietary technology for you? Are you working with partners there in terms of how you take the distillate or extraction and get it into your products?
Yeah, well, I think in the beginning we thought we were going to do everything on our own, like we'd be able to create our own emulsions and go to market, and we realized very quickly that that's a very challenging proposition. So we actually partnered with Vertosa and the team over there, and they've really helped us across not only our beverage line but our edible line to create really this fast acting emulsion. So we really want the effects, at least the timeline, to mimic alcohol. So the last thing we want is you to drink a beverage and to have that 30 to 45 minute delay of onset. We want it to mimic that 5 to 10 minute onset period. So that is with the emulsion we're using through Vertosa, we've been able to get that. And all of our beverages, we're really in that 1-to-1. So we like to balance out the THC with the CBD, and we like the effects to come on quickly. Not even with the edibles, we don't like there to be any surprises there.
Yeah, nice. It's very interesting, and your flavor lineup includes a pretty dynamic range of flavors. How'd you arrive at some of those?
Yeah, so we took a lot of the technology and flavor developments from our hard cider business actually, and moved that into our cannabis business. So, black cherry is actually one of our best-selling 1911 flavors of hard cider. So, it was a no-brainer to move that in, and we do a product called Tropical Cider with 1911. That's been a great selling seasonal, and we felt like that would be a great cannabis flavor as well. So not reinventing the wheel, but really taking these full flavors and bringing them into cannabis. We also felt, since our product's more sessionable, to take a phrase from the beer world, meaning you can have. We wanted to make it so you can consume 2 or 3 in a setting. So that 5 milligrams, we feel like you can layer that over the course of a night. We don't want it to be getting 20 milligrams up front. So
Right.
if we were going to do that, we also felt it important that the sugar content of one wasn't 15 to 20 grams. So our beverages are in that 3 to 4 gram of sugar.
And the CBD too takes the edge off. I think it sort of
it's
a more level, even keel experience, I guess, is.
Yeah, it's a great balance. And before we were in the playing with THC and in the adult use market, we're also a CBD processor. So New York is one of the first states actually to allow you to not only produce THC, but also operate in the hemp and CBD world. So, under our Beak and Skiff research brand, we have a developed CBD business. So yeah, we've been able to incorporate the two and marry them in one facility. And that's been really, really exciting. But it's been interesting as people learn about the brand, start consuming it. They're really seeing the benefits and swapping out alcohol or swapping out some of these other beverages they've consumed over the years.
What's one of the most challenging things about scaling this business at this time in New York?
Yeah, well, there's so many challenges in beverages specifically. If you look at vapes or edibles, the infrastructure you need is relatively small compared to beverages. So in the beverage world, one of the most challenging things is, in order to produce a shelf-stable beverage, meaning that it can live on a warm shelf, it doesn't need to be refrigerated, and you have a shelf life longer than, say, 10 to 15 days. We're looking for a year-long shelf life. You need to have a serious kill step, not to get too technical, but what that means is you need to have the product heat. You need to apply some serious heat to it. So we've installed tunnel pasteurization. And then you look at when you're canning, getting a canning line that produces a product with low dissolved oxygen levels. We've really had to invest in this infrastructure, multiple millions of dollars. So the barrier to entry on beverages is pretty high to put the right equipment in place and to be able to scale. So that's one of the real challenges, in that right now there's only 4 to 5 dispensaries operating in the state. So while we think that's going to grow long term, there's just not a lot of places to sell the product right now. So I think everyone's experiencing those challenges, and just how long it's taken to get to this point. So we've been operating in the cannabis space now for 5 years, and just lots of losses and challenges and broken promises. And so you have to have a lot of conviction. You have to really believe in what you're doing. And you have to deal with a lot of pushback. So pushback from consumers who just don't understand what we're doing or why we're doing it, and the frustration that brings. But coming at it from a point of education and not frustration. So we've had to do a lot of that. And then just in New York State, like every state's rollout, just getting mired in hearsay and not understanding what's true, what's not true, what's coming and what's not coming. And right now in New York, there's a lawsuit.
Also, two. There's a few.
Yeah, there's lawsuits.
They're increasing now. Yeah.
Yeah. The challenge to the card program
Right.
is the big one. So like in Syracuse, there's no dispensaries, and a lot of these, Brooklyn, there's no dispensaries, and in Buffalo, there's no dispensaries. Rochester. So we're just battling that. So it's going to be supporting. We're big believers in the spirit of the MRTA and social equity and getting these people who have suffered in the drug war and getting them up and running. But we're paying some price along the way, and you just have to be patient. But patience takes a lot of capital and a lot of conviction.
Yeah, and it's it's an evolution, right? We're building the plane as we're flying it, so to speak. So there's some of that.
Yeah.
fits and stops and whatnot along the way. So, so are you allowed to retail the heirloom in your own stores, like, or in your own facility, or direct to consumer? Is that
Yeah.
how you how
Right,
you're?
yeah, right now it's really our THC, our marijuana derived product is being sold in dispensaries only. So
Only?
yeah,
Okay.
it's a dispensary product. We do have a hemp derived product, a hemp derived Delta 9 product that we do sell, direct to consumer. So it's in that less than 0.3%
Right.
THC by volume. So we're playing in that world a little bit as well. But we're really focused on building out the adult use ecosystem in New York State, and that's where our head's at.
And
Um,
do you have capabilities to white label, or do you plan on just using your facilities for your own homegrown
yeah, so
product?
we did scale the facility to be able to produce for other companies in vapes as well as beverages, and that mirrors kind of what we've done across our other businesses. So we have a lot of experience in co-manufacturing. But when you're producing somebody else's product, there's a lot of pressure there to ensure it's done correctly and has all the right. You're checking all of the boxes there. But what's been going back to challenges in the business. As we're trying to do everything the right way and follow all the rules, there's this undercurrent of the legacy market operating, and just not really having any rules, and the frustration of trying to respect what they're doing, but also seeing how they're just not having to follow any of these crazy rules that were, or these standards that we're held to. And New York State has, pretty high excise tax. So we're also fighting that. So it's definitely creating higher prices at the dispensary.
Yeah, for
On the
sure,
shelf.
for sure. Yeah, but do you think the legacy market has the capabilities to produce beverages like you produce? Or I mean, I've
Yeah,
seen I've seen like lemonades and like basic, like basic beverages, but nothing that I think would compare to what you guys are producing.
Yeah, so that's one of the other advantages is like, as we talked about, the barrier to entry on beverages is pretty high. So
Yeah.
yeah, you don't see a lot of black market or legacy operators in the beverage industry. So that's been helpful.
So let's get a little dirty and talk about sort of how you source products. Outdoor grown, sun grown, indoor. What's like? Where does the source material come from? How does that
Yeah,
work?
so we're outdoor. So we're growing outdoor in New York State. So we're growing on our apple farm. So one thing we have to be really careful of is just drift from pesticides. So we have like a very specific designated area on our farm that's kind of pesticide free. And so outdoor sun grown. We're focused on, we've converted some of our, in the apple business, we have these CA rooms. So when you harvest apples, they actually go into these controlled atmosphere rooms where you take the oxygen out and you put nitrogen in, and actually stores the apples for up to 8 months. So that's how we can make hard cider year round. But we've actually converted a few of those rooms because they have a great, we can make them very dry. They already have dehumidification in there. So we've been drying a lot of our cannabis in those rooms, which has been helpful. But yeah, so we're using our own product, and then we're sourcing from other local farmers in the area. So the big challenge in New York, though, is the humidity we battle in the summer months.
Right.
So we haven't grown any smokable flower on our farm. We've been really focused on just source material for our vapes and edibles and beverages.
Gotcha. Who are some other farms that you're fond of that do grow smokable flower?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved what Alan and Carly and Ross and the team down at Head and Heel are doing at New York Hemp Oil. So we've worked with them, everything from sourcing our genetics to purchasing biomass from them. So we've collaborated a lot. But I've had some of their flower and really had some great experiences with it. Ithaca Organics down in Ithaca as well. They've been growing some great stuff. So it can be done. It's definitely a little bit more technical and there's definitely a higher level experience required. But yeah, there's definitely some great outdoor being grown in New York State. But the variables, there's so many variables with the weather here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what do you do in the winters? Like, when you get 12 inches or more of snow, and then the sub-zero temperatures.
Yeah.
What happens then? Do you lose your harvest, your crop?
Yeah, well, the good news is we're not growing that time of year. So
Okay, so all right, so it's dormant.
yeah, But in the apple business, we're the trees are all asleep right now, but they wake up in April, and we go into the first buds come out on the trees, and we're really hyper focused on frost and all of the elements
Right.
that contribute to a good crop or a bad crop. But we're always hyper focused on the weather.
Sure. How many harvests do you get a year growing outdoors in New York of hemp and cannabis?
Yeah, so we did we actually pushed to get we used autoflowers this year.
Mhm.
So we I think our first clones went in the ground in right probably the first week of June, and we pushed for a third crop that went all the way into the middle of November, and that was a little dicey. That one, I don't know that we do that again this year, just because of the frost that we battled.
Starts early, yeah.
The year, but we had a lot of success with the autoflowers that we grew. Actually, last year in New York State was pretty warm and dry until the end of the year. So, great in terms of growing cannabis, and we irrigate everything. So, we don't need the rain. We can control all of that. But we've done it now for 5 years, so we've had a lot of experience on what works and what doesn't work. We put up invested in all of our fencing and cameras, and making sure that the overall everything's secure. So that's been great. The deer don't seem to really like to eat weeds, so that's been good.
They like apples though, right?
Yeah, they love apples. Yeah, absolutely. But it's been fun to see how our team here has really gotten into it, and Pete Fleckenstein, who's oversees our orchard here, he's really gotten into growing cannabis with his team, and so they've kind of jumped from apples to cannabis, and it's fun to think about both thriving on the same farm.
Yeah, it's awesome. What's your take, or what's your theory on interstate commerce? I'm sure that would be a boon naturally for your business. Are we far off from that?
Yeah, well, I don't think that interstate commerce is going to be a great thing in terms of people trying to grow in New York State. I think ultimately the climate for outdoor cannabis just isn't conducive when we start to compete with California and a lot of the Western states. I think that will create real challenges for the farmers in New York State. So I don't know if that's great. I think from a product standpoint, especially as we look at beverages, that would be a great thing, just since we've built an infrastructure to be able to handle more volume. We'd love to get a few years, in our own New York ecosystem and get this going before that happens. But, if we get the Safe Banking Act to pass, that would be huge. Obviously, dealing with banking, and just yesterday we got kicked off one of our e-commerce platforms because we sent an ad with CBD in it. So we're still battling all of those things. Our Instagram account gets taken down once a year, and it's things like that are just
Right.
challenging, and so we always we're battling that. But ultimately, federal legalization will happen, and I think for the end consumer it will be a great thing, and the consumer will get the best products.
What are sort of one or two things you would want the marketplace to know about Beak and Skiff, and about the industry as a whole?
Sure. Well, Beak and Skiff, I think it's all about, we're a family business, and we've been so focused on, preserving the land here, and creating jobs, and creating an economy here in central New York around cannabis. And, we've been fortunate in the sense that we have this established legacy business that's been able to support our cannabis business. I think, when people look for quality and an operator who understands how to make safe, quality, and consistent product, that's something we do across a lot of categories. Well, whether it's hard cider or bourbon or fresh cider, we're constantly doing that. And I think I see a lot of brands popping up, and I think they like cannabis, but we're really trying to tell our family story, and connecting Ayrloom to Beak and Skiff has been hard. We debated a lot. Should it be Beak and Skiff, or should it be Ayrloom, or another name? And the reason we went with Ayrloom is we felt like it needed to stand on its own. But Ayrloom, we spell it Ayrloom, but Heirloom really harkens back to our family orchard. So traditionally, heirloom apples are the apples that make the best hard cider. However, they're the hardest apples to grow. So, my cousin Pete, who runs our orchard, hates growing heirloom apples, but they literally make the best hard cider. And they're the apples. They're the trees that survive the harshest winters, the toughest weather climates. And so we felt like that was a fitting name for our new brand, to call it Heirloom, because, we've gone through a lot in the cannabis business. We went through a hemp boom and bust cycle that was very quick and very violent, and took a lot of operators out. And a lot of the operators now in New York State who have gone through that have taken on a lot of losses and experienced a lot of hardship. And luckily we have our other business, but a lot of these other farmers don't. And they've been sold the promise that there'd be 30 to 40 dispensaries up and running in New York State right now. And that's not really what's happened. So there's a lot of flower and biomass that's out there unspoken for. And I worry about a lot of these farmers. So
are there any cannabis collectives? Is there a way like you guys can kind of pool resources to mitigate some of that, lag in distribution?
Yeah. I mean, there's as a processor, which we have an obligation to work with some of these farmers and try to get their product converted to oil, which we are actively doing. But yet, I don't know that there's collectives forming, but I do think that, we need to really get some of these dispensaries going now to preserve the crop. But I think a lot of these farmers are coming to the harsh reality that, maybe some of this flower that they grew to be smokable is now going to have to be converted to oil. So we're seeing a lot of that happen.
Yeah, nothing's a given, right? Everything's earned in this business, right? You have to put a lot into it, and you gotta weather the storms that are inevitable in an industry that's nascent like this.
Definitely. But the positive green shoots is that, if you look at the dispensaries that are opening, they're doing really well. They're pulling in customers, and I was at the William Jane dispensary opening last week down in Ithaca. And what was interesting there is looking at the people standing in line, it was a lot of older people in their, that 30 to 50 to 60-year-old age range. So we're pulling in we're pulling in some new customers who are maybe not, not used to, they're not the legacy consumer who's used to consuming 100 to 200 milligrams a day. It's somebody new who's going to come into the category. So we are breaking new ground. We're introducing it to new consumers. People are feeling safe going into these dispensaries and purchasing. So one of the big trends we've seen is edibles are doing extremely well in New York State. So people are, that just tells me that people feel safe coming in and buying it in a dispensary, knowing that it's safe, tested product. And that's really great to see. So I'm hopeful for that. And I know a lot of dispensaries are pushing to get open in the next 3 to 6 weeks. So there's a lot more to come.
Awesome. Any parting thoughts as we're kind of coming up on our time here? Any last minute thoughts you want to share?
No, we're just excited to be launching a new brand, but building a new brand's really hard. And we're excited about the future of Heirloom and excited about the future of the cannabis industry in New York State. And there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, but I think ultimately people who are making quality products that taste the same day in, day out and provide the similar effects, consistent effects and great efficacy are going to win. So we're excited about the future.
Awesome. Well, as a 112-year-old business, I'm sure you appreciate that, what it means to be in it for the long haul, right? You're not in it we're all in it to make money, right? We're all for-profit enterprises, but you understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint, and you're definitely in it for the long haul. So I wish you guys continued success and growth. And thanks for joining us on The Edge today.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Harrison. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Eddie.